Good morning. Welcome to the UMass Boston Academic Year 2020 to 2021 Virtual Convocation. Please stand or pause as we welcome Ashley Villard, an undergraduate music major in the Performing Arts Department, to sing the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Hello, maligayang pagdating. My name is John Ray Javier, and I have the honor to serve as your undergraduate student body president.
Hola a todos. My name is Jaylee Pereira, and I am humbled to serve as the vice president of the undergraduate student government.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Pletcher, and I have the honor of serving as your graduate student assembly president. It's my privilege to welcome the new chancellor to the UMass Boston community, and I look forward to collaborations in the future.
We want to welcome you to a new semester and our virtual convocation ceremony.
Canciller Suarez Orozco, le damos la bienvenida a UMass Boston y estamos muy felices de que esté aquí.
And now we want to introduce former coordinator of the Black Student Center and current program assistant of the Office of Social Justice Service, Stephanie Boville.
Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Boville, and I'm the Program Coordinator for the Office of Social Justice Leadership and Service, supported by the PACE Apprenticeship, as well as the former coordinator of the Black Student Center here at UMass Boston. I am honored to be able to speak with you all at the 2020 Convocation as we welcome everyone in celebrating a new academic year. As this new year begins, and as I personally begin to prepare for the road to graduation, I can't help but recall my first year at UMass. Having moved to Boston from New York, I felt like a duckling without a raft. When going through the college application process and touring different universities, I focused on selecting a university that offered not just academics, but also a sense of community and belonging. Despite the label of a commuter school, I was able to seek out and find that sense of community at UMass Boston. I am obviously biased in my experiences, having been a member of several student clubs and centers on campus. However, the energy and connections I've been able to create has positively impacted my development, both as a person and as a leader. Having been able to take part in and facilitate programming that focuses on financial literacy, physical and mental wellness, and the expansion of cultural competence and appreciation, the evolvement of student life and programming on campus is near and dear to my heart. When I was initially informed of our incoming chancellor, Marcelo Suarez Orozco, I knew that I had to make it a mission to meet with him. Luckily, he was able to take the time out to speak with me during his very busy first week. During this initial meeting, I could admit I was quite nervous, but I had high hopes. At the conclusion of, and honestly halfway through my meeting, I was able to realize that my nervousness was unwarranted. Chancellor Marcelo's priorities and mine intersected in all the places that mattered. I can happily and honestly say that Chancellor Marcello is going to be a wonderful addition to our UMass Boston community. He has a firm understanding of the needs of our students, faculty, and staff, and a willingness to learn and evolve as the cultural climate of our society changes. He brings to our community fair-minded leadership, a soothing and calm demeanor, and a sociable and warm-hearted approach. As we welcome everyone to a new year, and as I introduce our new Chancellor, Marcelo Suarez Orozco, I would like to leave you all with a quote from Henry Ford. "Coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success." I wish you all a productive and successful year. Thank you.
Good morning, Beacons. Stephanie, thank you for your kind introduction, and to our student leaders, Janray, Jaylee, and Jen, thank you for your leadership and support of our students. Also, a special thanks to Ashley for her beautiful rendition of the national anthem. It is my honor to be here today serving as your new Chancellor. Thank you all for joining in on our virtual celebration of the official opening of the University of Massachusetts Boston 2020-2021 academic year. I would also like to extend a warm welcome to all of you, President Meehan, members of the Board of Trustees, our faculty, students, staff, alumni, friends of the university, and to our distinguished principal speaker today, Dr. Danielle Allen. I now have the pleasure of introducing video messages from University of Massachusetts President Marty Meehan and one of our esteemed alums and member of the Board of Trustees, Mary Paris Jeffries. I thank them for their commitment and dedication to our university and to our campus, and for taking the time to address you today.
Thank you, Chancellor Suarez Orozco. I am honored to be part of this first ever virtual UMass Boston Convocation and to help welcome Marcelo as he begins his service as a new Chancellor for Boston's Public Research University. Like all of you watching, I would so much rather be with you in person to extend my best wishes as UMass Boston embarks on this new academic year. As we all know, much has changed over the last several months, but I also know that the most important characteristic of UMass Boston endure. Above all, the dedication of the UMass Boston faculty and staff to providing students the best educational experience, even under the most difficult circumstances, is unyielding. They are the definition of resilience. When obstacles emerge, they put their ingenuity and creativity to work. As we move forward through these uncertain times, I have confidence that UMass Boston will deliver for a student body hungry for opportunity, brimming with aspirations, and filled with potential to do great things for Boston, the Commonwealth, and the nation. To the students of UMass Boston, I want you to know that we are all rooting for you this year more than ever. We know how many of you have already overcome challenges just to get here, and that you will continue to face even more challenges in the pursuit of your college degree. We are here to support you, most of all because we are counting on you to lead the way to a more just, fair, and healthier nation and world. We need you. Your community needs you. This nation needs you. The world needs you to succeed here at UMass Boston. And we all know that you will succeed because you have the determination, character, and intellect to do so. Finally, I want to extend an enthusiastic welcome to Chancellor Suarez Orozco. There is no better purpose for a renowned scholar and academic leader with his background to serve as UMass Boston's 9th permanent chancellor. There is no better time for Marcelo to be here as we all seek to build a society that values the vast potential contained in all who seek to live the American dream. Like so many others at UMass Boston, past and present, Marcelo is a first-generation immigrant and college student who has risen by seizing opportunities available to him and then using his many talents to create opportunity for others. He is a role model for all of us, and I'm sure you will help me welcome him to this great university. I wish you all the best as you prepare for the 2021 academic year. I look forward to hearing your stories of achievement and impact in the months and years ahead. Thank you very much and good luck.
My name is Imari Paris Jeffries, and I bring to you greetings on behalf of the University of Massachusetts Board of Trustees. I am so pleased to be invited to Convocation 2020. Though we are conducting the ceremony virtually, it is no less significant as we kick off this new academic year. One of the reasons I'm honored to be here is because the University of Massachusetts is in my blood. It's in my DNA. I am a proud three-time graduate of the University of Massachusetts Boston, a triple beacon. I owe much of my success to this university. The faculty who challenged me every day and who were here to help me, my classmates whose idealism and diversity always drove me to make a difference, and the entire campus community committed to carrying out the mission of providing a top-rated higher education at a great public research university. Thank you all who've worked to make this convocation a success, and to everyone who's tuned in to participate. I hope that you make great strides this academic year. Congratulations and welcome to a new year.
Good morning. My name is Emily McDermott, and I am the Interim Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. Ensuring that the university builds intellectual strength every year is an important mission. A university lives by its faculty. In fact, as I often point out, the Latin word facultas, from which the English word faculty derives, means power. And indeed, it is the faculty who power a university. Of my many responsibilities as Chief Academic Officer on campus, I can say without ambivalence that my favorite is to bring new voices onto the faculty. This year, we are pleased to welcome 19 new tenure-track faculty colleagues recruited to UMass Boston through national searches. The names and departments of our new colleagues will be shared on the screen as I speak. I would encourage you to learn more about our new distinguished faculty by visiting the UMass Boston Convocation website. Welcome to you all. Now, I would like to congratulate 39 of our faculty colleagues who have been recognized with promotions for the quality of their research, the impact of their teaching, and the value of their service. This year, we are pleased to have 14 faculty who received tenure and were promoted to associate professor, 12 colleagues who were promoted to the rank of full professor, 11 faculty members who were promoted to senior lecturer, 2 faculty who were promoted to senior lecturer 2, and 1 librarian promoted to librarian 3. Congratulations to you all. I also want to offer special recognition to the members of our teaching faculty, those colleagues in the ranks of lecturer, senior lecturer, and associate lecturer who do so much to power the educational experience of our students, to serve their departments, and to contribute generally to the operation of the university. Following the traditions of convocations past, I would like to take a moment to recognize the winner of our 2020 John W. Ryan Award, an honor bestowed annually on the junior with the highest grade point average at the university. Named for the first Chancellor of the University of Massachusetts Boston, John W. Ryan, the Ryan Award commemorates our first convocation and celebrates excellence in our student body. I am pleased to announce this year's winner, Amy Maida, a biology major in the class of 2022. Ms. Maida is a rising junior with a perfect GPA of 4.0. She came to UMass Boston after finishing her high school career with nearly perfect grades at the Fukuoka Jo Gakuin Senior High School in Japan. Beyond her studies in biology, she is active in the Asian American Student Scholars Program. Congratulations, Amy. Next, I am delighted to share with you the UMass Boston winner of this year's Manning Prize for Excellence in Teaching. Established in 2015 by alumnus and chair of the Board of Trustees Robert Manning and his wife Donna Manning, also a UMass alum, the Manning Prize honors outstanding faculty members from each of the 5 campuses of the University of Massachusetts. This competitive prize is designed to be presented to faculty members who demonstrate excellence in teaching, along with exemplary dedication to students and the campus community. At UMass Boston, we have specifically designated the award to be given to a newly tenured faculty member who has achieved outstanding success in the area of teaching. The recipient of this year's award for excellence in teaching is Professor Kristen Murphy. Professor Kristen Murphy joined the Department of Curriculum and Instruction at the University of Massachusetts, Boston in 2014. Professor Murphy is a passionate educator, passionate about her students, passionate about her subject area, and passionate about her teaching. Her research explores the education of students with disabilities in 2 related contexts: educators working with students with disabilities in public policy, and educators working with students with disabilities in juvenile corrections schools. Dr. Murphy states that her overarching goal is to, quote, facilitate teacher success in the classroom by cultivating high-quality, meaningful pre-service and professional learning opportunities and fostering supportive working conditions. Congratulations, Dr. Murphy. I now am happy to introduce Chancellor Suarez Orozco as he offers his remarks to you today.
Thank you, Provost McDermott, and a special thanks to you for your long and distinguished service to the University of Massachusetts, Boston. Good morning, Beacons. Welcome to the University of Massachusetts, Boston. Today, you begin an extraordinary journey at the numero uno public research university in Boston, the great city of education. From our founding in 1964 to the opening of our doors in 1965 in Park Square and the move to our campus in Columbia Point in 1974, our DNA has been, as our founding charter reads, the university that stands with the city to serve and lead where the battle is. The urban research university of the city and for the city and of and for the times today reaffirms its true north. We serve our city. We serve our Commonwealth. We serve our world. We recognize that starting or continuing your UMass Boston journey amid a global pandemic is anything but ordinary. Under these most trying of circumstances, your journey of study, discovery, and self-discovery will be rigorous. It is a journey full of possibilities and full of potential. Your new beginnings are marked by an uncertainty in the midst of a great suffering, pain, fear, and so much loss. At our campus, we continue to work tirelessly to mitigate COVID-19 as best we can and to ensure the physical and emotional safety of all our students, our staff, and our faculty. Your safety and wellness are foremost in our minds and in our endeavors. My deep hope is that all members of the Beacon family, of your family, are healthy and staying safe. My heart goes out to our first responders, our nurses and doctors, our EMTs, our orderlies, cooks, cleaners, our teachers, and all workers braving the virus to bring relief, compassion, and hope to those most closely touched by the pandemic. These trying days serve to remind us that higher education is more important today than ever before in history. The 21st century is a century of education. A ravaging pandemic, particularly devastating to communities of color, unchecked climate change, extracting suffering and death in the world's poorest regions, the structural racialization of inequality, and the intergenerational persistence of anti-blackness, xenophobia, and exclusionary anti-immigrant policies cry out for education to sharpen its focus and redouble our efforts and endeavors to forge anew the indispensable tools for social justice. Our broad intellectual vision, our purposeful dedication to engage scholarship, and a muscular connection between research and practice, animated by an ethic of care, solidarity, and the spirit of social justice, is the ethos that must suffuse the entire university. Moving forward, our responsibility, your responsibility as new members of the Beacon community, is significant. In the age of atavistic hate, anti-science, and anti-rationality, higher education offers precious tools for science, logic, and facts-based debate. Consider the interventions of our students, Crystal Gale O'Neill and Natalie Shalito, in the debate with the Boston Globe, WCBV, and WBUR, as Senator Ed Markey and Representative Joe Kennedy III face off in their final Democratic Senate primary debate. Co-hosted by the McCormick Graduate School 2 weeks ago, it embodied the best facts-based civic discourse on many defining issues of our times in our Commonwealth. Or consider the National Science Foundation funded work of physics professor Hammer, endeavoring to elucidate the complexity of quantum information processing as we move deeper and deeper into the fourth industrial revolution. Or consider the award-winning work of Professor of Management Nardia Haith on scenario planning for climate change. Science and logic, but also the artistic and humanistic representations of what is at stake, have a role to play in confronting and reversing unchecked climate change and building a path towards sustainable consumption and sustainable development. Climate change has morphed into climate disruption, bringing with it events like droughts, floods, and wildfires. Weather extremes during the last 20 years have claimed well over 600,000 lives. We're entering an era of dangerous climate change, and climate extremes will move into our living rooms instead of happening thousands of miles away to someone else. With unchecked emissions beyond 2030, continuing warming can pose existential threats to all Homo sapiens, rich and poor, and to most species in our planet. But make no mistake, it is the poor, our indigenous communities, our racialized minorities, who are least responsible for the activities that pollute the world, who are paying the brunt of the costs exacted by unchecked climate change. Literally, we're putting our children, grandchildren, along with generations of unborn, at risk. At UMass Boston, we're taking up the cause, armed with the best of science and logic to disrupt the malignant effects of climate change now and moving forward. Education, science, and engineering, and the arts are essential tools to face this existential crisis. Racism, racist violence, and destruction, now taking the form of what Pope Francis has called an industry of death, is bequeathing an empire of suffering in every city, large and small. Its victims include those who we hear of in the news. An innocent African-American man, Ahmaud Arbery, going out for a jog, fell with impunity in his own neighborhood. An innocent woman, Breonna Taylor, murdered in her own apartment. A black trans man, Tony McDade, shot by the police. The barbaric murder of a pleading George Floyd by the police in Minnesota. And most recently, Jacob Lake, shot and paralyzed by police in Wisconsin in front of his 4 children. But there are so many more lives lost that have not made the headlines. Our community is both outraged and devastated by these events and by the ongoing loss of members of our black community. Racism, hatred, police brutality stand in complete opposition to a humanist civilization and to the elemental requirements for the practice of democratic citizenship. As Jassy captures in her great novel, Homegoing, racism is a complicated intergenerational force that creates, quote, lives starved of self-directed narratives, their fates dictated by people, institutions, and historical forces over which they have no control, and from which people often escape only by chance. The book's title is taken from an old African American belief that, quote, death allowed an enslaved person's spirit to travel back to Africa, end of quote. As Jassy notes, too many of us are still waiting for our spirit to find its way home. As scholars, scientists, artists, humanists, and practitioners who are committed to social justice, we must reflect on our privileges and act in all that we do against the systemic racism that impacts our community and the children and families whom we serve. We must address racism and anti-blackness and its impact on the daily lives and opportunities of all individuals of color. I thought I would never have to say this publicly, but in the age when so many continue to peddle the fool's gold of division and hate, I must. If you are an immigrant, documented or undocumented, let me say this loud and clear. In Spanish first. Mi casa es su casa. UMass Boston es su casa. If you're a Muslim, UMass Boston is your house. If you're a person of color, it is your house. If you're LGBTQ, it is your house. If you're a Native person, we know we're in your house. We acknowledge our indigenous communities with deep respect, and we honor you. Scholarly inquiry must be built on the foundations of respect, rigor, and reflexivity. Without these fundamentals, our fragile edifice of learning and teaching is undermined. our vision is blurred and our mission becomes an elusive mirage. Again, let me be clear. I demanded of myself as your chancellor, and I expect the entire Beacon family, including faculty, students, and staff, to embody an ethos and practice based on respect for the dignity of all human beings. Safety is the sine qua non for trust and an essential foundation for us to be able to reach the higher ideals of the public research university. Acts of intolerance, discrimination, bullying, and overt and covert bias stand in complete opposition to the spirit that animates UMass Boston and our lives as scholars and practitioners. In the months and years ahead, you will be working closely with advisors, mentors, professors, and colleagues doing fundamental work on what matters most in higher education in the 21st century: the discovery and application of usable and humane knowledge at the crossroads of policy and practice. Purposeful work in the service of others, so all our citizens can become fully engaged in our ever more miniaturized, interconnected, and fragile world. We hope and expect that you will make yours our ethic of service to the unserved. Our collective purpose at UMass Boston echoes a message to find purpose in serving others. In my view, public higher education is the indispensable tool for disrupting and overcoming the malaise of growing inequality, an ominous threat to the practice of democratic citizenship. These times call for an education to nurture that which is true, logic, that which is good, justice and ethics, and that which is beautiful, aesthetics. Creating a more inclusive, just, and sustainable world is education's urgent challenge. A final piece of advice I wish somebody had given me when I was where you are now. All education at root is about human flourishing. In a book I wrote many years ago, Oprah wrote a little blurb that said, quote, "Education is freedom." Amen. Education is also joyful and playful, and you can't learn without joy. So in your journey, make sure to smell the metaphoric roses. Also, as you move forward in your studies, pursue a topic. Perhaps take a course or write a paper on a topic other than your major or area of primary study. This is the time to explore. Lastly, even if in Zoom, make sure to meet and get to know someone different than yourself. Boston is one of the most amazingly diverse cities on earth. So get to know someone from somewhere else. Beacons, please stay safe. I wish you the very, very best as we start our journeys together. For I too am a new beacon. And remember, once a beacon, always a beacon. Go Beacons. And now it is my honor to introduce our principal speaker, Dr. Danielle Allen. Dr. Allen is a brilliant scholar, an engaged public intellectual, and a humane and dedicated citizen of the world. She serves as the James Bryan Conant University Professor at Harvard and Director of Harvard's Edmund J. Safra Center for Ethics. Dr. Allen is a political theorist who has published broadly in democratic theory, political sociology, and the history of political thought. Widely known for her work on justice and citizenship in both ancient Athens and modern America, Dr. Allen is the author of The World of Prometheus, The Politics of Punishing in Democratic Athens, published in 2000. Talking to Strangers, Anxieties of Citizenship Since Brown v. Board of Education, 2004. Why Plato Wrote, 2010. Our Declaration, a reading of the Declaration of Independence in Defense of Equality, 2014. Education and Equality, 2016. And Cuz, The Life and Times of Michael A., 2017. She is the co-editor of the award-winning Education, Justice, and Democracy, 2013, with Rob Reich, and From Voice to Influence, Understanding Citizenship in the Digital Age, 2015, with Jennifer Light. Dr. Allen is a former chair of the Mellon Foundation Board, past chair of the Pulitzer Prize Board, and a member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the American Philosophical Society. I give you the inimitable Danielle Allen.
Good morning, UMass Boston. What a pleasure to be with you today. Such an important occasion, a new beginning, a chance to form fresh connections, to explore new lines of inquiry, make friends, make discoveries, change your own life and the lives of those around you. Today is a hard day to start a new academic year in the midst of a global pandemic, in the midst of protests and social movements about police brutality. It can easily seem that we are trapped in an age of anger and despair. I'd like to quote from a sociologist, a man named Allison Davis, who was the first African American to be tenured at the University of Chicago earlier in the 20th century. He gave a commencement address in the late 1960s in an era much like this, full of existential distress over Vietnam, civil rights movement, conflicts between generations. And he wrote of that time period, although we seem trapped in an age of anger and despair, the alternatives remain the same as in all other ages. We can scuttle or we can sail the seas. Navigare necesse est. One must chart his course and sail. On your beautiful campus, you have the water around you all the time. You see the seas. You have, therefore, a constant reminder of this metaphor, that this is a moment for charting your course and sailing. Now, this is not something you need to do alone. It is something we ought to do together. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk with you this morning about how we can chart our course and sail on these choppy seas towards a better world. I've been grateful over the last few years to be able to collaborate with Chancellor Suarez Orozco on a big body of work called the Commission on the Practice of Democratic Citizenship. Welcome, Chancellor, to the campus. It's terrific to have you in Boston. This commission on which we both worked recently released a report. It's called Our Common Purpose, Reinventing Democracy for the 21st Century. In this report, a group of about 35 academics and business people and leaders from across sectors came together and worked for several years interviewing Americans across the country, citizens, residents, voters, non-voters. We asked lots of questions about how people think about the state of our society and its future, what they see as their role, what they see as opportunities for participation and obstacles for participation. We wanted to understand the health of the world we live in and how to make it healthier. There have been red alarm alerts for a while about the state of American democracy. In 2013, for example, Congress's approval rating was 9%. Now, Congress is the first branch of government. In democratic theory, the legislature, the body that passes the laws, has the job of expressing the will of the people. So if we, the people, approve Congress at a rate of 9%, it means we don't approve of ourselves. That's a flashing red alert that our democracy is broken. Another flashing red alert is a fact about how much people think it's essential to live in a democracy. For generations born prior to World War II, about 70% of people think it's essential to live in a democracy. For people under 40, millennials, that number is barely 30%. So something has gone wrong. We don't have conviction that the world we've built together is a good one. That's what we need to change and transform. For democracy to thrive, people have to want it. They have to believe in it, they have to understand it, know how to use it, and they have to be committed to one another with bonds of solidarity. So in this work we did on the Commission, we tried to lay out some strategies that could help us all acknowledge the age of anger and despair in which we live, the distrust we feel to governmental institutions, the distrust we feel to one another very often. We wanted to acknowledge those challenges, but then chart a course, set a path forward. Our view is that a healthy democracy depends on what we call a virtuous circle, linking healthy institutions, a civil society of ordinary organizations, churches and schools and businesses and clubs, where those organizations help people bridge differences, and then a culture that nourishes a commitment of people to one another and a commitment of all of us to our shared constitutional democracy. Right now, we don't have a virtuous circle, we have a vicious circle. We have political institutions that are non-responsive. Take police brutality. People have been lodging complaints about policing for more than a decade, yet we've seen scarcely any change. That is an example of non-responsive political institutions. We feel often disempowered, as if our voices and votes don't matter at all. It's also not clear that we have equal representation. Those with the funds to contribute massively to campaigns have far more influence on policy outcomes. We have elections where a minority can elect a candidate and 50% of the people feel disenfranchised by the result of the election. That's at all levels of our system, whether the congressional or the presidential. So we have institutions that leave us feeling disconnected, detached from them, distrustful, not empowered. We're not getting responsiveness. And then we have a civil society where we don't actually have that many opportunities to connect with people who are different from one another. We have sorted ourselves into ideological blocks, different neighborhoods, different communities. Literally by zip code, we have different ideological orientations. And in that context, when we don't feel engaged in our political institutions, we feel disempowered and alienated from them, then we have less reason to participate in neighborhood associations, other forms of organization that bring people together to drive change in their community. And in the absence of those opportunities to work together, we cease to develop the habits of connection that nourish that commitment of people to one another. And we end up in a vicious cycle, downward spiral, where toxicity and bullying and negative orientations to one another fill our ecosystem, fill our ears, fill our minds. We have lower voting rates than other developed democracies and declining investment in our social infrastructure, our parks, our libraries, our public spaces, the places where we might meet one another. So the challenge is to flip that vicious circular cycle and convert it into a virtuous one, where our institutions are responsive, where we are investing in civil society organizations that bridge differences, and where we are building and nourishing that culture of mutual commitment and commitment to constitutional democracy. How do we do that? In our report, we do lay out 6 strategies, and I'm going to encourage you early in the semester, take the time to go look up the report. It's called Our Common Purpose. If you Google Our Common Purpose, it should be the first thing that comes up. It's from the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and you can go through all the different strategies. There are things like ranked choice voting that we argue for. That's on the ballot here in Massachusetts this November, so take a look and consider it. That's when you get to vote your first choice, your second choice, your third choice, and if your first choice person doesn't get enough votes to be in the top group, then your vote rolls over to your second choice person and so forth. Your vote always counts that way. You can express a view about a candidate that doesn't seem to have a lot of chance and put them in the race, but then also vote for a candidate who seems like they have a better chance. It ensures that you never have an election where that person takes office with less than 50% of the vote. Okay, so there are institutional changes like that. There are calls for investment in our public libraries, for transformations of our civic media ecosystem with regulation on social media. And then most importantly, there's a set of strategies around our mutual commitment to one another. And that's what I want to focus on for the last part of my remarks. My hope is that you will look at this report, consider its recommendations, and think about how you can contribute to rebuilding a healthy democracy on your campus at UMass Boston. But the piece I want you really to focus on is the last strategy, again, about the culture of mutual commitment and commitment to constitutional democracy. I want to talk about that one for a moment, because here you are on a college campus. This is a coming together. The purpose of doing this work on a campus, in a community, even a digital campus where you're in classrooms with one another, is that togetherness. That is the purpose, right? We don't do this journey of academic exploration solo. And as we do this work together, we have a chance to change the culture of our interactions with strangers. So here we are. We live in a world where there are so many challenges. We face the challenges of the pandemic that literally cuts us off from each other. We have fewer opportunities to be in person together. We have the challenges of ideological purity from both sides of the political spectrum, a kind of hierarchical traditionalism on one side and a sort of requirement of sort of perfect expression of commitments to new approaches to justice on the other side. And in between is where most people live, trying to figure their way through life, being good to other people, understanding justice, figuring out how to articulate its commitments, but also understanding the challenges and conflicts and dilemmas that confront us in our everyday life. And so in that context, there too, also our time is so consumed by the requirements of work and the requirements of school. Everything is structured throughout the day. We can think of this as a neoliberal economic rationale where every bit of time has a productivity value, and it's very, very hard for us to find time for leisure, for reflection, for civic engagement, right? So we have a number of phenomena: the pandemic, our ideological polarization and its rigidities, our economically driven society that squeezes out room for leisure and reflection. All of these things are like a rock sitting on our culture, a rock that blocks us from making human connections, from establishing memories with one another, from exploring the meaning of the world together. Yet it's just that, making memories together, working with others to understand the world in which we live and where its pleasures are, where our opportunities for reward and human fulfillment lie. It's working together on those questions that bring well-being. They're the goal, the purpose of our human experience. So we can transform our culture. We can lift the rock produced by the pandemic, produced by polarization and political fighting, produced by the press of economic necessity. We can lift that rock if we are intentional about our relations with one another. If we listen, if we want to hear from other people's memories what the world looks like to them, if we can build up the courage to share the gift of our own memories. If we do that, we start to renew our capacity to form connections across lines of difference rather. We renew our capacity to build a culture of mutual commitment. And ultimately, if we're going to change the world we live in, if we're going to restore health to our democracy, if we're going to foster justice and fairness and opportunity, the ground root for doing that is commitment of human beings to one another. So as you undertake your academic and intellectual journey, as you equip yourself with skills and resources in support of your vocational journey, I want you to remember your existential journey. And I want you to know that in pursuing your existential journey, forming connections with others, building out cultures of memory making and meaning, you're actually restoring the roots of solidarity and a culture of commitment. And it's that culture of commitment to one another's well-being that we need to solve problems like the pandemic. We need that commitment to our shared well-being to break through our challenges in governance. We need recognition of that value of human meaning making together, space for leisure and reflection to transform the economic rationales in which we're currently trapped. So we need you to be together, to be with one another and forge a culture of mutual commitment. That's what I wish for you as you enter into this new journey. And I know that with the help and support of Chancellor Suarez Orozco, the opportunities to forge those connections of mutual commitment will be many. May you take all advantage of them. Best of luck to all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Allen, for your inspiring and timely remarks. Before I conclude this year's convocation ceremony, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the wonderful team of staff who worked so hard to create this virtual convocation ceremony. Your efforts and commitment to UMass Boston are very much appreciated. Please stay on for a few minutes to hear a musical performance by Wilsner Bastien, Val Moroccan, and Molly Halpin. Thank you all for being here today. Be safe and be well. Go Beacons!